done in one area. Because that's where all the equipment, we've got all the electricity and the dust ones, and all of that is in one area. All of the bodies, the active bodies over there. Again, same process. So we do all of the similar things in certain areas to take advantage of the infrastructure of the whole building. Because again, this building was built specifically for Fender for making guitars. So we thought out all of the different departments, and especially we wanted to take a department like this. It's very dusty and very dirty, but it's also part of the paint department. We have to isolate it. So through there is the paint department. There's 4 different doors you have to go through to try to keep any of the dust here from getting in there. Now the department in here is where they do all of the buffing of the painted bodies. So the Jackson area is back here. They have their own department because they finish their bodies a little bit differently than we do the Fender product. The Jackson bodies are all finished with a polyester top coat, similar to what we do in Mexico. The polyester is of all the different finishes between polyester, polyurethane, and lacquer. Polyester is by far the hardest and most difficult to work with. I mean, when that stuff hardens, it really is. It's like rock to go through it. So they have more aggressive buffing wheels, a different technique than they use. Again, this is similar to what the factory in Mexico does, because the Mexico guitars have a polyester top coat. Fender products are either polyurethane, which would be the American series, the Deluxe series, or nitrocellulose lacquer, which is all of the vintage series. The lacquer and the urethane can work very similar to each other. The finishes are a little bit softer, and they take a little bit more of a finesse approach to the buffing. They can't work quite as hard on them. All the guys are at lunch right now, which is, they usually work a little bit harder than this. Yeah. But once again, heavy metal is still alive. You gotta love it. I mean, we have been amazed at the number of really expensive heavy metal guitars we make here. You know, at first we thought with Jackson, you know, I mean, we sell a lot of the lower priced ones, but you know, I mean, this guitar, by the time it's done, U.S. retail price on this guitar, I think is almost $3,000. So now the heavy metal guys have an American Express card. You know, you first thought it was just, you know, the kids, the 18, 19-year-old guys, you know, death metal, all of that stuff. No, I mean, we've got the doctor lawyers that, you know, are doing the heavy metal on the side. But it's been fantastic. Some of the finishing things that those guys do are great. Jackson have two artists that come in 3-4 days a week and airbrush and hand paint all this stuff. We have a third guy who comes in, he takes stuff home and works with it and brings it back. So, you know, things like that. Here's another one of the...
Yeah, I was wondering how you did it.
Yeah, all done by hand, all airbrushed on that. Now, they have similar things that they do over and over, you know, are repetitive. Things like back there on the rack, a couple of the Eddie Van Halen guitars. Those are the ones that we did. The initial ones we literally had sent bodies to Eddie while he was out on the road. And I guess maybe part of his rehab, he'd stay in the hotel rooms putting the tape on them. Because we would get these guitars back from Eddie where he had hand done all of the taping. We'd build the guitar, ship him the guitar a couple weeks later, and he'd play it at a show. And then the guitars would come back from Eddie after he'd played them, and the word was, you can open them up, don't clean them, don't touch them. If there's any dirt, sweat, whatever, leave it. It was all part of the deal of selling the guitars like that. On the Fender products, this is what the bodies look like when they come out of the paint department. So this has had the undercoat, the color coat, and the clear top coat on it. And when you pick it up, initially go, oh wow, it looks pretty nice. It's kind of shiny, but if you look at the reflection of the light, you can see, oh wow, really, it's got all kind of wrinkled looking. It's got little dips, lumps, things like that. And that's what this department gets rid of. So their first step is they actually take sandpaper to it. So they use 3 different grits of sandpaper. The first sandpaper they start with is this. That's 600 grit sandpaper. They'll use 600, 800, and then this is the final one that they sand it with. That's 1,000 grit. 1,000 grit sandpaper. And so they literally just hand it by hand. They use one of these, what we call a vibro sander. It's all air driven, and you just go over the whole body. And the whole idea is we keep using finer and finer material to get out the scratches. The 600 grit is the coarsest that we use. And again, that helps flatten it out, get rid of all of those little lumps and things like that. So from there, each step goes to a finer and finer grit to the time we get to our polishing wheel that literally is just kind of a wax type of polish that they use. So from here, the second step is they use this handheld buffer, called an orbital buffer. It's the kind of thing you do with your car. And so that helps get out a lot of the scratches that the sanding has left in, but then it's still not quite ready to go. This is one that's gone through the orbital sanding. So you say, okay, now, if you look at the reflection of the lights in there, it's getting a little better, but it's still a little cloudy, a little hazy, because they haven't finished it off yet. One of the things they do as we go between like a lacquer and a urethane finish, they've actually got a variac, so they can vary the speed of this. So if they're using the urethane, they can run it a little bit faster. With the lacquer, they slow it down, because what happens as soon as you start buffing, you generate heat. And if you generate heat, if you start pushing too much, all of a sudden, whoop, you've gone right through the paint, right back to the wood.
Can you just explain how thin the paint is?
Oh, this, I mean, well, by the time we get all of the paint on, between the undercoat, the color, and the clear, yeah, the finish is maybe about 18 to 20 mils. Okay, but each coat is really pretty thin. I mean, it's, 4 or 5 mils thick, so they have to be really careful when they're working on it, especially the lacquer. If you heat it up, it gets soft. As soon as it gets soft, if you lean on it a little bit too hard, so these jobs really skilled to the point that it takes a while to really learn how to do it. When we bring in new people, there's a pretty substantial learning curve, because I mean, inevitably we'll get a guitar over into the final assembly area. You look at something's odd, you go, new guy, right? Yep, new guy. So, but we have a really good training system where every department have what we call entry-level positions. Something where the person coming in off the street isn't going to do any harm to the product or themselves. And a lot of people don't. The red and the yellow have the red is pretty coarse, and it's almost like sandpaper. But we'll use this to get into all of the edges. So when they're buffing, they'll get all the cutouts and the edges. They'll buff like that. Only because it's almost impossible to get in there with the sandpaper to really flatten it out and smooth it out. And then from there, they use the pedestal buffers here with just a liquid polish to do the final shine of everything. So one of the things that we've started doing here, in fact, the factory down in Mexico started it originally, and we've implemented up here with incredible results, is we have what we call work cells. So in this area, we've got 3. There's 1, 2, 3, and there's 7 workstations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So each cell has 7 people in it, and they do all of the buffing beginning to end. 2 ladies do the sanding, 2 guys use the orbital buffers, and then there's 3 guys here that do all that. Each of these cells has a daily quota. Each of those cells has to do, I think, 95 bodies a day in 8 hours. Anything they do over that, they get a bonus. Or if production's going that, when they're done with their 95, they can go home. And at first, you know, we've been doing that down in Mexico for quite a while with really good results. When we first here, it's like everybody sort of freaked out. We've been doing it now for about 6 months. Unbelievable.
Love it.
Unbelievable. Yeah, yeah. They're making a little bit more money, and then if we need extra production, it's overtime, so they get paid extra for that. You know, and the bottom line is we want to provide a good place for everybody to work. You know, some of these jobs are not easy. They're physically demanding, they're kind of dirty, but hey, everybody wants to make a good living, support their family, do all that. The company's doing well. We just want to make sure that everybody is happy with it. But the feel that they've got a little bit of control, that they can, you know,
achievement as well.
Right, exactly. That they can contribute a little bit, and you know, it's not just, oh God, here I am. Yeah. And the other thing that it's done, they're all working together now as a team.
As a team, yeah.
If the guy down here is getting it saying, you know, I'm trying to buff this thing out, and I'm seeing some sanding scratches. Well, oh, hey, you know, he goes back and talks to this guy. Or if the guy doing this says, hey, you missed a spot. So before, everybody just kind of did it, passed it on. They'd look at it, but they didn't have the incentive to all work together as a group. And wow, the results have been great. But it's, again, been a slow process. We spent, we did like 6 hours of training for everybody in this department. We set up classes up in our training room upstairs. We brought everybody in, teaching them, you know, do you know the difference between a Strat and a Tele? You know, again, we see the instruments when they're all done. You got to remember, these people are seeing this, you know, their whole life. And a lot of them don't know, well, you know, if they're buffing, well, what if it's got a big scratch right here? Well, we know there's going to be a pick guard there. Maybe they don't. You know, so all of a sudden, here's a guy stressing, spending 10 minutes trying to get out a little spot right there that doesn't matter, and then he misses one that's right here. You know, or just one of the first things we did when we did our training, I took a guitar and handed it to each person and said, hold it like you. And I asked, does anybody play? Maybe a couple guys play. I said, here's how you hold a guitar. I said, here, hold it. And now look down. I said, those are the spots that are the most important. So remember, that's how the customer's going to see it. He's going to see it two ways. He's going to see it in the store. It's probably going to be hanging, and he'll look at straight on. From then on, it's going to be like this. And I could see, like, you know, the light bulb go on. They're like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. It's like, I've seen guys do that. You know, so it's sometimes you get so close to this stuff, you forget some of the little details like that. Of just, yeah, the area up here is a combination of drawing and storage. With us producing 542 guitars a day, we have to have a tremendous amount of work in process. So the drawing time has been cut down because we implemented an infrared oven about a year ago to help accelerate the curing, because normal curing time on the urethane was 3 to 5 days and 7 to 10 on the lacquer. We pretty much cut that down by about 60% with this infrared. It just accelerates the chemical process. So the original concept of that, yeah, was for drying. Now we don't use it nearly as much for drying as we do for storage. It gets them up, out of the way, people aren't bumping into them, because again, see, we don't have a lot of empty space around here. Everything's pretty crammed together. When the bodies come over from the paint department, they're on a big rack, so they all stick out. And so we just got to make sure that people aren't bumping into things and, you know, doing things like that. So. So when we were out in the woodworking area, you know, you saw all that work that went into making a neck, and the bodies were pretty simple. When it comes to finishing, it's the exact opposite. Painting the bodies is a tremendous amount of work, where we go over and over all these different processes. The necks are pretty simple. They get 3 coats of paint, and then they come over here, and we get them some sandpaper. Anything that has a satin finish is done with steel wool after the sanding. Any of the vintage-style necks that are gloss, they've got the buffing fluids there. So production time for a guitar is about 3 weeks. From start to finish, from those neck blanks that you saw, the one in a case, out the door, is between 20 and 23 days, depending on the particular model. So to get the average, about 3 weeks. Mostly from Schaller. The vintage ones from Godo. Yeah. So now we're back where we started. This is the final assembly department. Again, now we've seen the whole process. So they have the bodies over there. Even the bodies, once they come in from the buffing department, still need some work. They have to things like cleaning all the paint out of the holes. So when they go to put screws in, the paint doesn't crack. They'll add things like on the Telecasters, the output jack. They'll install there, a little bit of prep work. Now the next, tuning keys. They'll install. Tuning keys are one of the few things we don't make. We buy all those from either Schaller or Godo. Then back here, they actually fit the neck and body together. This is the first time the neck and body come together. That much of the operation before the two are mated up. So they hand fit every neck and body together. They do have to clean out. They'll take a Dremel, and we want them to clean this out a little bit. It's a little bit small by design. We want them to clean it out. That way we get a really nice, tight fit between the neck and the body. I mean, years ago, Fender guitars, the thing was, you would use that gap between the neck and body to put an extra pick. You could always have an extra pick in there because there was plenty of space to put in there. Now, I mean, the fit of the neck and body, we've got guitars that you can't get them apart because the fit is so tight, even if you take the screws out. So a lot of that's done because you do hand fit every one. Then once they get the neck and body together, they come over to another one of the work cells here.
I have the large department.
I'm sorry.
Here and Scottsdale.
So here in the work cell, the people in the back, they're the ones that actually assemble all of the parts that you saw. They get a neck and body that's put together with tuning keys on the neck. Now they put on the bridge, the electronics, put on the strings. All the strings are made at our factory down in Mexico. The factory down in Mexico, their string production right now I think is somewhere between 65 and 70,000 strings per day down there. Amazing operation to see them cranking out the strings. So they string the guitar up, get all the parts on it. Then the guys here in the front of the cell, these are what we call our tuner testers. These are the technicians that actually take all of these parts and turn it into a musical instrument. Until they get a hold of it, they're done with it. It's not that. It's just a collection of wood, plastic, and metal. Each guy has about 20 minutes per guitar. Now that's a guitar that comes to him where it's already been buffed, the electronics have been checked, it's gone through a lot of inspection before he even gets it. So they have to set the underbow of the neck, cut the nut, set up the bridge, the tremolo, string height, things like that. But everybody in here has to be familiar with all the models. As we walked through different parts of the factory, we were out seeing the woodworking. You know, there'd be a full table full of jazz bass necks. When we were in the watching them do pickups, the lady was working on just humbucking pickups. A lot of the earlier departments work on things in similar batches. By the time everything gets in here, it's almost like one at a time. Because we build guitars the same way we sell them, which is some of everything every day. So today's a real normal production day. As you look down here, there's 52 Tellys, there's American Series Strats, there's a Malmsteen Strat, there's a 50th anniversary, there's a couple of basses down there. We do a mix of everything every day. So because of that, everybody in this area has got to be on top of what goes with what. Because we have a lot of interchangeable parts. We've come up with some very creative instruments by accident. You know, and periodically we get the call, why does my P bass have a jazz bass neck on it? Well, because it can. And then you say, oh, you got that one. Oh, yeah, and you only paid how much for that? Oh, that was a special model. Man, that was a custom one. Especially recently with all the different color combinations of this color takes this particular pickguard and all of that. So it's a challenge. So everybody, literally from the first person that touches it coming into this department to the last guy packing it, knowing what accessory kit to put in, everybody's got to be on top of what's what and what goes with that. So once the guitars are done, we've got our inspection crew over here. Every guitar gets picked up, played, measured, visually inspected one more time before it gets out the door. So back to what I was saying earlier, the number of hands touching that guitar by the time it gets here and the ladies are cleaning is pretty significant. Yeah. Oh, the location. Yeah, yeah, that's done out there. And, yeah, it's very real accurate. So once the guitars have been inspected, they actually create the barcode label right here that you'll see on the outside of the shipping carton when you get it. So really, in the massive world of Fender, it's not a guitar that we can sell until the tender's in right there. So from there, we've got our ladies who do the cleaning of the guitars. They go over everything. All the U.S. guitars are packed in either cases or gig bags. Things like the plastic molded cases come to us from a vendor in China. All of the other cases, the tweed cases, the Rolex cases, is a guy up in L.A. And the vendor we have up in L.A., G&G Cases, the guy who runs it took over the business from his dad, and his dad used to sell the Leo Fender. Victoria Luggage is the company that made the original Fender cases, which became G&G Cases, which is the, so again, we have that kind of tradition, the transformer vendors that we use. The guy who is the sales rep for the transformer company just retired, I think, a year or two ago. When he first started with this company, Schumacher, one of his first customers was Leo Fender. So we've got that kind of tradition. Eminent Speakers. We're buying speakers now from the company that he got from his dad. So Bob Galt Sr., who started Eminence, again, was one of Leo's original speaker vendors. So we've got that kind of history with, you know, not only within the company, but people that we've been dealing with. You know, and the history with a lot of the companies that we sell to is also real long, and it's something that we really value, and it's an amazing asset to have people that have been around that long and know all the ins and outs and the tricks of what we want to do. Well, let's go upstairs and see a couple more things. Just about done. Okay. Yeah, the SWR showroom that we... Again, we ran out of space over in our training room to try to put all of this stuff. We said, not going to work. So we've got a dedicated showroom for all the SWR product, which is a nice little touch. They, again, we wanted to make them feel like they were not just a little add-on at the end of the, Fender trail of products, that they've got their own spot. And then there's another little production area over here. So because of the demand and all the success we've had with the new upgraded Deluxe series and the new SCN version of the noiseless pickup, we had to set up a whole other pickup assembly area up here. Our original plan was to incorporate it in the area that we went through downstairs. We just didn't have enough space. So this area up here, this is what one of the SCN pickups looks like. Some similarities to the old noiseless pickup, but then there's also quite a few differences in terms of magnet construction, things like that. So that's done up here. And then we've got the Jackson assembly area back here. Again, of all the acquisitions that Fender has made over the last few years, I think we've probably been pleasantly surprised at the demand for the high-end Jackson and now the Charvel stuff. When we first took it over, that's now almost 2 years ago, the demand for Charvel was almost zero. There were a handful of U.S. Charvel guitars they'd made and a few Japanese ones coming in. It just, the people that we bought it from had pretty much let the Charvel name die. So that's being resurrected, and the increases that we're looking for from the USA-made Jackson and Charvel stuff as a percentage over 2004 is really significant. So when we originally moved Jackson in there, they just had this little room here in the back. That was their whole final assembly, prep area, all of that. With what we need to be doing this year, we've expanded them out now into both areas because their production is literally going up 3, almost 4 times. So we're really excited about that. And again, it's all things that we know how to do. We brought stuff into the facility that really makes sense for how our machinery is set up, the production flow. The great thing about a Fender guitar is our production is exactly the same, whether it's a Strat, Tele, P-Bass, or Jazz Bass. Everything goes through the process pretty much the same way. To a degree, the Jackson stuff is very similar. That it all kind of goes into a consistent flow. So it's been a nice addition. So some more of the Van Halen. Again, these aren't the ones that Eddie did, but they're all done basically to his specs and all that. Also, the timing was, we were pretty lucky on the timing of this because, Peavey had Eddie Van Halen for a long time when that band wasn't doing anything. Eddie was having health problems and the band literally had lost their record contract. Right about the time the Peavey contract expired, the band kind of came back to life. Last fall they did a big U.S. tour. They were playing all the big arenas and things like that. It was the first time in, I don't know, what, 6, 7 years, that Van Halen had been doing anything. And, everybody say, those guys, old band and all that. Man, they'd play and, there'd be 15, 20,000 people every place they went because a lot of people remember it. So, we kind of came in right at the right time with this, doing this right when the band was out, doing something again and getting a lot of attention. PD, unfortunately, had Van Halen most of the time, but the guys just weren't doing much. So, too bad. Yes. Yeah, very nice. You know, so some of the stuff they're doing is, you know, a little bit different in that they're doing more, you know, transparent finishes on stuff with some nice flame maple, even pops or veneers, things like that on these. So they're really are nice guitars, you know. And the great thing is, the guy's going to buy this. You're not going to sell him a 52 Telly. He may have a 52 Telly, but if he's coming in to buy this, he's coming in to buy this. You know, and so why not have all of us profit from it? Makes a lot of sense. This is the old Charvel Star. So that's coming back to life. So it's great. I mean, a lot of these guitars you remember from years and years ago are coming back again. Well, I think that's about it. Anybody got any questions? They also have some pretty ridiculous guitar cases that some of those things go in.
We still haven't had our first shipments yet. They're kind of supposed to be on the way, but the shadow.
Makes a bigger impact, but hopefully that's the case. Quite a lot of targets in Steve just said, she's too old that she'll live.
Wash my hands.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, this one. Oh, that's fantastic.
Just kidding about that. Just to let you know what the plan is for the rest of the day. Those of you that are here right now and have gone through the tour, the bus to take you back to the hotel is downstairs. And there, I believe, are another 45 or 50 people. The second group are down there. So as soon as you're done and get back on the bus and go back, they can get started. So take your time and enjoy yourself. Smoking is out in the front of the building for anybody who would like to do that. And remember, you're in California. Smoking is not even really allowed outside. We tell most people to go to Arizona if they want to smoke. It's a long drive, but it's really nice when you get over there. If anybody's got any questions about any of the stuff that you saw, you know, Dave, Gina, Nick, and myself are still here. Please ask. You know, enjoy the food, enjoy the guitars, and again, thanks for coming, and have a good stay in the U.S. Our pleasure to have you at Fender. Thanks.
Like 10 minutes. This one's open, so it's not in this good.